Brooklyn, please give a strong Brooklyn welcome to the 20th president of the greatest borough in the world, Williamsburg born, and all of our own here in Brooklyn, Mr. Antonio Reynoso.
Yeah. Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. Damn right, I like the life I live. Push up from negative to positive, and it's all. And if you don't know, now you know, you know. And if you don't know, now you know. Thank you all. Take a seat. Sit down. And if you don't know, now you know.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much for being here. Good evening, Brooklyn, the greatest borough in the city of New York. Look at all these beautiful people. Brooklyn is in the house tonight. Can we get a shout out? Bed-Stuy, are you with us? Is Bed-Stuy here? Coney Island, what's Coney Island? All right. East New York? Park Slope? Greenpoint? All right, Williamsburg? All right. How about that, Williamsburg? Did you ever think a kid like me, a first-generation Dominican boy growing up in the South Side, would be standing here tonight as the president to the greatest borough in New York City? Brooklyn, just over a year ago, you made history by electing me to serve this borough as the youngest borough president ever elected to a full term, the first Latino Brooklyn Borough President, and the first Dominican Borough President ever elected. And since then, I've spent every day working hard, making good on the promises I made you, to challenge the status quo and set new precedents for what a borough president can do. And boy, has it been a busy year. First and foremost, I want to thank my family, my wife and 2 sons. I want to thank my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, and my cousins, and all the people who have been there with me from the start. I heard a couple of them already. I want to thank my hardworking, and yes, to my family. Alejandro's there. Hi, Papi. I want to thank my hardworking and dedicated staff. Back in January 22, nearly all of Brooklyn Borough Hall left, deservingly so. I don't know where Mayor Adams is. Leaving Borough Hall with very few staff members because they all jumped into the East River to another borough that we won't mention. It's nice to see you, Mayor. Thank you so much for being here. To Mayor Eric Adams. Today, we're nearly fully hired, giving us the power we need to deliver the change we're working towards. I want to thank my colleagues and fellow elected officials who I'm advocated alongside to champion for a better New York City for all. I advocated alongside Senator Chuck Schumer to push for the long-delayed cleanup of the Newtown Creek Superfund site to be sped up. I supported Councilmember Alexa Aviles and Jennifer Gutierrez and Tiffany Caban in calling for last-mile regulations to ensure environmental justice in communities. Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine and Councilmember Lincoln Ressler to advocate for banning of non-essential helicopter travel in New York City. I joined forces with Queens Borough President Donovan Richards to push for Summer Streets program to be extended to Brooklyn and Queens. Shout out. There you go. In fact, this past year, we saw the most collective activity by the 5 borough presidents than we've ever seen before. Like when we stood outside a very cold February morning last year, calling to create a greener, more resilient city by launching the Million More Trees initiative. I'm also honored to be joined by my colleagues in government tonight in person, remotely, or in spirit. Again, I want to thank Mayor Adams for being here and for the work that he did in setting the table and the foundation for me here at Borough Hall. Again, I want to thank, please, a round of applause for Mayor Adams. I want to thank Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Brooklyn boy, for joining us tonight and I want to give it up for the leader in DC. The work that he's doing is immeasurable and more important than ever right now. and it's not by chance that he is from Brooklyn. So Chuck Schumer. We're also joined by my brothers from another mother. The first, and these people are mentors to me and helped me be where I am today on many levels. The first is a man who's never afraid to speak the truth to power, our public advocate, Jumaane Williams. And his partner in crime, a man who is bringing sharp progressive analysis to the Comptroller's office, Brad Lander. I'm fortunate to serve as BP with a cohort of amazing leaders. First, I want to start off with Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson. Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. And Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella, who couldn't be here with us today, but want to give him a round of applause. Yes. Thank you for trekking out to Brooklyn tonight. When Borough Hall fights for Brooklyn's neighborhoods, we do it in a partnership with your council members. Let's hear it for the members of the New York City Council who have joined us here tonight. Please, a round of applause for them all. Stand up, please, council members, stand up. There you go. Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Brooklyn's congressional delegation who are currently in DC fighting on behalf of our borough, who can proudly now say that we are led by one of Brooklyn's very own minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries. And lastly, let's give it up to our state electeds, many of whom are in Albany today, fighting as always to make sure that all New Yorkers have a seat at the table. Please, a round of applause to our state representatives. I also want to thank the leaders of our advocacy groups, community-based organizations, our faith groups, and our schools that I've had the privilege of supporting for this past year. We supported a number of resource fairs throughout Brooklyn, like the East New York Gives Back Resource Fair with United Community Centers, and a new neighbor resource fair for asylum seekers at Woodhull Hospital with Councilmember Gutierrez. We joined our local police precincts during National Night Out. We cheered our youngest Brooklynites back to school alongside APNA. Brooklyn Borough Hall worked closely with Transportation Alternatives, Open Plans, and Regional Plan Association, and Riders Alliance on issues related to open streets, open restaurants, and congestion pricing. We had some serious fun with the God Squad at their summer block parties. You always know they're here. We supported app-based delivery workers alongside the Workers' Justice Project, Deliveristas. New York City Comptroller Brad Lander and many council members were alongside us for that fight. We provided a home at Borough Hall for events like the Faith Sector Emergency Preparedness Program, where we partnered with New York Disaster Interfaith Services to discuss climate resiliency on vulnerable communities. We sponsored 250 tickets for kids to attend a Kwanzaa event at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. If I list every organization and every event we supported, this year, we'd be here all night. And I know you guys want to be here all night, but let's, for the sake of brevity, I also want to thank our generous host tonight, here at CUNY City Tech, who opened up their state-of-the-art theater for tonight's event. I want to thank the CUNY Chancellor, Matos Rodriguez, and New York City College of Technology President, Mr. Russell Holzer. Please, a round of applause for CUNY. There are a lot of people who have supported me along the way, a lot of people who are the reason why I'm standing here today, and things they told me have stuck with me for 10, 20 plus years. I want to take a moment to tell you about one of those people and how something they told me more than 20 years ago also serves as a guiding principle for my current role in Brooklyn. Mr. Thomas. He was my college advisor. And let me tell you, this guy, he was stuck on my case. When I was doing a little too much partying and not enough studying in college, he would tell me he knew I could do better, but I just had to focus on the more positive things. Telling me I needed to expect more of myself. From freshman year until my senior year, he never let up. And there's one piece of advice he gave me that I continue to carry close. Mr. Thomas told me, he said, people like you and me, poor people, kids from the block, we don't get the luxury of not having a plan. We don't have the luxury of not thinking 5, 10 years into the future. He told me, if you want to really do something, if you don't want to end up back in the same place that you started, then you have to go out and start planning now. And he was right. He's one of the people that I attribute my success to, why I am where I am today. And it's because of him that I know Brooklyn also doesn't have the luxury of not having a plan. When you have the high unemployment, the gross inequities, and the unaffordable, unfit housing we have, when you have displaced families, under-resourced schools, and over-policed neighborhoods that we have, when you have problems like these, you don't get away with not planning ahead. You don't get away with not having a big, bold solution for real change that people who call Brooklyn home can have. And there are opportunities for change. There are big new ideas right in front of us. I see them. And I'm here before you as your borough president because I'm ready to act on them, to deliver the results no one realized the borough president could. We can create new jobs in areas like Brownsville. We can build affordable housing in areas like Midwood, Bay Ridge, and Brooklyn Heights. We can build climate resiliency in areas like Coney Island. Tonight is about our plan for Brooklyn, for moms and new parents, for our streets, for our housing, for our environment. Tonight is about the plans underway and the many yet to come. And tonight is about proving that Brooklyn can really be what it is when we take back this borough and boldly rebuild it for the people who call it home. And now, as I took on this great responsibility that comes with being the chief executive of Brooklyn, we didn't want to waste a moment. Delivering on that promise, after years of isolation, we got to work restoring a sense of community and connectivity, starting with Borough Hall. We got to park the cars off the Borough Hall Plaza. We took down no skateboarding signs because the kids don't listen anyway. Eric, am I wrong? All right. And in February, we opened Borough Hall back up to the public for the first time since winter 2020. We brought art, culture, and community back into the people's house. First, in the earliest of the early days of my time as Borough President, we hosted the Brooklyn is Africa exhibit to celebrate Black History Month and Women's History Month at Borough Hall. We tapped into the largest collection of African art and artifacts in the world that lives right here in Bed-Stuy and is owned by the famous Mr. Eric Edwards. Then in March, we laughed with the women comedians from the Brooklyn Comedy Collective at our first Laughs at Brooklyn Borough Hall. In April, we hosted our first annual Ramadan Iftar with nearly 300 community members coming to break bread at Borough Hall. In May, we rose the Haitian flag, celebrated our Mexican community, and honored our American, Asian, Pacific Islander neighbors. We launched our Brooklyn for All city-affiliated not-for-profit to promote cultural diversity of our borough through services, events, and programming. We celebrated LGBTQ pride and Puerto Rican heritage, and even organized a fashion show to honor our Caribbean neighbors. We put on lunchtime jazz concerts. We helped 28 cats and dogs find forever homes through our Adopt a Shelter Animal event. We provided the Brooklyn Book Festival shelter during a particularly rainy weekend. We packed up boxes and boxes of everything from turkey and sweet potatoes to fresh fruits and veggies, delivering Thanksgiving goods to the community through 100 local non-for-profits. We hosted trick-or-treating for young Brooklynites and enjoyed caroling when we lit the largest holiday tree in Borough Hall history. The list goes on, and that's just what we've done at Borough Hall. The best parts of being Brooklyn's top cheerleader is when I get to go out into the community, like partnering with Prospect Park and Fort Greene for movies under the stars, New Year's Eve fireworks at Grand Army Plaza, and a community baby shower in East New York, or celebrating legends like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X at BAM, or marching with the Dad Gang on Father's Day, or getting my butt handed to me at ping pong by one of our seniors residents at Coney Island. Is it up there? Is it up there? All right. He beat me. I'll be back. Or dancing through the streets after Juve as the Grand Marshal to the West Indian Labor Day Parade. And how could I forget bringing back the beloved Wingate concert and jamming out to reggae, gospel, soca, and more with 5,000 Brooklynites. Can we get a round of applause for Wingate? Wingate is no joke, let me tell you. It's a lot of work, a lot of work. Yes, listen, this past year has been a lot of fun. Brooklyn is a place of joy, of art and dancing and music, of so much love. But this past year has also made the challenges facing our neighbors even more clear. And I want to take a second to talk about some of the people on my team for a moment. I want to talk about our Constituent Affairs Department. You might not know this, but my first job ever in government was in Constituent Affairs. Listen, these are the people who are on the ground delivering for the people. These are the people chasing down answers from city agencies, trudging through bureaucratic red tape and confusing policies to make sure our community members get what they want and what they need. These are people fielding hundreds of phone calls, emails, mailed letters, walk-ins every single day, and following up with every single person. Even the people who call into our monthly Ask the BP show with News 12, 42,700 total communications with constituents in one calendar year. 4,000 constituent cases handled. It's incredible. Because of Constituent Affairs, residents aren't paying fines for sidewalk repairs that aren't and never were their responsibility. A church isn't being unfairly fined $5,000 for not having their gas lines inspected, despite not having gas in their building for nearly 4 years. Students at Brooklyn Technical High School have the permits they need to use their athletic field. Because of Constituent Affairs, a man staying at a shelter in Bushwick could get the housing inspection he needed to move into his very own apartment just last month. The people of Brooklyn, yes, a round of applause. The people of Brooklyn are treated with and given back some dignity, as our department director perfectly describes it. But behind all these calls are the realities of what Brooklynites are dealing with every day in this borough. And Brooklyn is dealing with some really, really big problems. Right now, Brooklyn is facing the worst maternal health crisis in all 5 boroughs. 1 in every 3 pregnancy-related deaths in New York City are happening here in our borough. Right here in our borough, Black women are dying at 9.4 times the rate of their white counterparts because of pregnancy-related complications. It's one of the greatest inequities and greatest injustices that we're bearing witness to. And I told you all, I promised you that I would change that. I promised you that I would do everything in my power to make Brooklyn the safest place to have a baby in this city by the time my first 4 years are up. And I don't make promises I can't keep. So you know what we did? We did something no borough president has ever done before. I allocated the entirety of my FY23 funding, every single penny, to our borough's 3 public hospitals. $45 million for maternal health care. $15.6 million for Kings County to renovate the neonatal intensive care unit and mother-baby units. Kings County in the house. $18.5 million for South Brooklyn Health or Coney Island to renovate their NICU, labor and delivery rooms, postpartum recovery rooms, and outpatient care center. And $11 million for Woodhull, where my sons were born, to build a state-of-the-art birthing center. Tonight we're joined by OBGYNs, nurses, midwives, anesthesiologists, doulas, social workers, administrators, engineers, among many other healthcare heroes from these 3 Brooklyn public hospitals that will use this funding to improve birthing centers, training, care, and more that will ultimately save the lives of our Black and brown birthing people. If you're here representing any of those hospitals, please stand up. I would love for you to stand up. We want to recognize you. Thank you for being a partner in my fight to make Brooklyn the safest place to have a baby. Allocating an entire fiscal year's funding towards one cause and within one organization, New York City's Health and Hospitals, is something that's never been done before. But anyone who knows me knows that I don't like to do 100 things halfway. I like to do 4 or 5, and I want to do them all the way. And I couldn't have done it alone. There's a part of the story many of you don't know, and it's quite possibly my favorite part. So there are a lot of people that typically receive funding from the Borough President's office, schools, cultural institutions, that really need whatever funding and resources they can get. So when I decided I would be giving a whole year of my funding to hospitals, we called them up. I told them, I know you were hoping for some funding. I know you need it, but I can't give it this year because Black and brown women, Caribbean women, poor women, they're dying. And if I got to put this money towards changing that, and I have to put this money towards changing that. And every single organization and every single person I spoke to said go, because that's what Brooklynites do. We back each other. We see the common good. And together, we made history. But we didn't just focus on physical spaces. because physical space is only half the battle. On top of that, we granted $100,000 to Met Council to create Born in Brooklyn baby boxes full of baby supplies and postpartum resources. And partnering with H&H and community-based organizations throughout key neighborhoods in Brooklyn, we got those resources into the hands of new parents taking home their newborns. We invested another $250,000 into a multimedia, multicultural public education campaign designed to empower Brooklynites to prepare for healthy pregnancies and what comes afterwards. We created an online resource guide in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole that includes everything from nutritional guidance, emotional wellness plans, and a patient's legal rights to resources for accessing health insurance, midwifery support, and doula services. We got the word out with paper pamphlets, bus shelter ads, subway station ads, and digital ads in areas with the highest rates of maternal mortality and morbidity, Black and brown communities. And none of this historic maternal health agenda ever would be possible without my amazing maternal health task force. The first thing I did before any of these investments or initiatives was assemble a group of brilliant Black women working across all fields to improve maternal health. And of course, it is led by our co-chairs, Chief Women's Health Officer at Health and Hospitals, Dr. Wendy Wilcox, and Director of Midwifery Services at Woodhull Hospital, Helena Grant. Can you please stand up, the two of you representing the task force, the whole task force. There they are. Yeah. These are the people behind our maternal health work. These are the people guiding me. These are the experts in every meeting and every video call telling me what we have to do to stop failing pregnant people of color. And I'm on the other side of those phone calls waiting to put resources towards new programs and partner with more organizations that have the same goals and priorities in mind. And it's because of our maternal health task force that our work in Brooklyn around maternal health has even caught the ears of the United Nations, allowing us to share our work as a model globally. The best part, we're only just getting started. Over the next year, we're going to be working with our higher ed institutions to build pipelines into maternal health care. We're going to be creating pathways to increase midwives in our borough and improve people's access to their life-saving care. We're going to strengthen partnerships to bring maternal health education to younger Brooklynites. We're building a maternal health agenda that will forever change what it means to have a baby in Brooklyn. And don't worry, because I know how to walk and chew gum at the same time. This year, we issued $2.3 million in discretionary grants to non-for-profits and community groups serving the borough of Brooklyn. $98,000 for housing assistance to organizations like Churches United for Fair Housing. $140,000 for food distributions to the Campaign Against Hunger and the Pakistani American Youth Society and other local organizations. $225,000 for anti-gun violence youth programs to organizations like the 67th Precinct Clergy Council, or the God Squad, also known as the God Squad, and both sides of violence. $25,000 for street cleaning, and $100,000 for small business support through the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, $100,000 for holidays, and $235,000 for educational programs, $63,000 for youth sports, $56,000 for the arts and other theater programs through organizations like Mixteca in Sunset Park, or the Culture Museum of African Art in Bed-Stuy, Coney Island Sharks Educational Sports, and more. We even allocated over $300,000 to the Department of Aging to 29 organizations that support our senior communities like Fort Greene. As much, yes. Shout it out, shout it out. As much dedication as I have for Brooklyn and as tirelessly as our Borough Hall staff works, we can only go so far in changing lives of Brooklynites on our own. The valuable extension of our work comes in the form of community-based organizations and non-for-profits that provide critical services for their communities. It is an honor to support your incredible work and continue to build our partnership. Big and small, we're doing what it takes to build a Brooklyn for all. And that includes speaking up against injustices, like what's going on at Rikers Island, holding this city accountable for every life lost, 19 in one calendar year, and finally closing this horrible facility. That includes standing with workers like Los Deliveristas, or the Nurses Union, carpenters, and Amazon workers. That includes fighting for clean air, safe streets, and a borough that puts people first. Whether it's working to regulate last-mile distribution facilities, promoting policies that increase our resiliency against climate change, or continuing to work to make how we dispose of our trash more sustainable. Whether it's ongoing advocacy for congestion pricing, supporting an equitable redesign plan for the BQE, promoting a permanent open restaurants program, or asking DOT to bring summer streets to Brooklyn. We will continue to demand better for this borough and all who call it home. We will continue to think boldly, reject incrementalism, and never stop pushing the envelope and shaking things up. I've got some work cut out for me this upcoming year, but with the right strategic plans and strong trusted partnerships, I know we can get the job done. And I want to tell you, Brooklyn, about something that's in store. So that was the past, now this is the future. First up, we got the comprehensive plan, already underway. From London to Lagos, Bogota to Sao Paulo, most large cities across the world have created long-term comprehensive plans to guide their growth and development. A comprehensive plan recognizes that all urban policy, budget, and land use decisions are inherently interrelated and therefore need a shared vision to guide them. Yet, despite being the most populous city in the country, New York City noticeably is lacking a plan like this. And instead of planning, we have a piecemeal zoning approval process that we all know isn't getting the job done. So my administration has decided to take matters into our own hands and launch our very own comprehensive planning effort, anchored in public health for the great borough of Brooklyn. Home to 2.65 million people, Brooklyn is New York City's largest borough. In fact, if Brooklyn were its own city, it would be the 4th most populous city in the entire country, and we're only continuing to grow. Between 2010 and 2020, Brooklyn saw the largest population growth of all 5 boroughs. But just because we're growing doesn't mean we're growing equitably. Black and Hispanic life expectancy are dropping faster than any, dropping faster than other populations during the pandemic due to compounding and chronic public health conditions related to asthma, diabetes, obesity, and hazardous work conditions. In 2020, data from the CDC showed that overall life expectancy across all racial and ethnic groups was 77.3 years. Life expectancy for black people was only 71.8 years. Worst, life expectancy for black males was 68 years. These disparities have existed for far too many decades and generations, being compounded one issue after the next. The good news is that in Brooklyn, we want our future to be informed by lessons learned from the past. A comprehensive plan would help change these historic and unequal trends in public health and work towards ensuring every neighborhood can grow and thrive equitably. The key to comprehensive planning is to have a clear objective, and our focus is to set squarely on the intersection of housing and public health. Because of decades of racist city planning and a long legacy of segregation, our communities of color are clustered. Our communities of color are clustered in areas with the poorest housing conditions, the least access to resources, and the worst health outcomes. It's no coincidence that 90% of childhood lead poisoning cases involve children of color, or that our neighborhoods in Eastern Brooklyn are dying sooner with the highest rates of premature mortality in the entire borough. Our comprehensive plan aims to address this injustice, guiding future development to prioritize health, well-being, and a sense of community as we build more affordable housing and accessible housing across the borough. This plan is really about sharing the love, sharing the love, sharing the responsibility of supporting the growth and success of our borough as a whole, and resisting temptation to focus narrowly on ourselves or one single neighborhood. It is important to me that we're not just building in the same places that we've been doing all the work answering for our housing crisis. Areas like Brownsville, East New York, Williamsburg, Bushwick, and downtown Brooklyn. That's where all the housing is getting built in our city. Nah, it's gonna mean that we need to start building everywhere, in the places that haven't seen a rezoning or any new development since the 1960s. Since the 1960s. And we're not laying out a long-term planning agenda without the voice of the people. One of the qualities that make a comprehensive plan different is the true emphasis on public engagement, ensuring that this information reaches every corner of the borough and that we create spaces and methods to collect feedback from Brooklynites in all communities, from town halls to digital surveys, presentations at community boards, meetings, and more. We want to include the people who this future-facing plan will impact. In addition to working with the Regional Planning Association, the New York Academy of Medicine, and Hester Street, we also established an advisory committee full of people from all walks of life. This committee is made up of about 25 non-for-profit, government, and academic institutions and organizations across the borough. This team understands that urban planning sits at the intersection of public health and environment, and climate change and housing, transportation, and so much more. We are ready to do the work of building a borough for all, and we're not just thinking about housing in terms of where our families rest their heads at night. We're also thinking about where our community-based organizations or our non-for-profits live too. These are the lifeboats of so many communities and so many neighborhoods. These are groups doing the work day in and day out, no matter how much money or recognition comes with it, to help people live their life a little bit better. So many of our non-for-profits, and especially smaller organizations, must continuously spend time and money on ensuring that they have a base of operations for their work. Time and money that could be going to service delivery if they own their own spaces. That's why I'm committing to using a portion of my capital budget to assist Brooklyn non-for-profits in purchasing permanent spaces so that they can spend less time. So that they can spend less time negotiating with landlords and more time serving our neighbors. Because listen, the people of Brooklyn can't keep building a better life for themselves, their families, and their communities when all the money is all caught up in just surviving. And that applies just as much to non-for-profits as it does to low-income tenants. Rent isn't the only cost that burdens Brooklynites. This is also important. For many, meeting their monthly utility bills is a persistent worry. According to a 2019 report by the Mayor's Office, 32% of Brooklyn families in 2017 were utility burdened, spending more than 6% of their income on utilities. And this was before costs went up about 11 to 12% per year over the last 3 years. To help alleviate this burden, I'm committed to undertaking a large-scale solarization project in Brooklyn, which will simultaneously provide a measure of relief to people's monthly utility bills, while also moving our energy consumption away from fossil fuels and towards renewables. The way a community solar project functions is through a large central power plant, helping share electricity by more than a single home or apartment. This service is of benefit to those living in multifamily buildings and do not have ownership of their roofs, right? So if you're renting, you can't put a solar system on top of your roof. Or your roof is not up to code. So this is a renter issue in low-income New York, for low-income New Yorkers. It is often our low-income communities who suffer the most from the impacts of climate change. True environmental justice is ensuring that frontline communities are benefiting from the green economy. So much of what my administration is focused on is looking at hard numbers that plague our communities, especially our communities of color. Understand why stark disparities exist, and then trying to solve for them. You heard it in our maternal health initiatives. Our comprehensive planning is completely data-driven. We're also stuck on numbers when it comes to black employment. As of 2021, black unemployment in New York City stands at 9.7%, compared to 5.5% for their white counterparts. At the neighborhood level, Brownsville alone has an exceptionally high black unemployment rate of 11.2%. We have a way of looking at these jarring numbers through an opportunity. So much of what makes Brooklyn special is the seemingly never-ending creativity and drive of our residents. This is especially evident among our entrepreneurial community. But for so many Brooklynites, the barriers to launching a business, a successful one, are insurmountable. And often to do so, they need to leave their local neighborhoods, depriving certain neighborhoods of economic development and service. I can't accept that. We need to do more to ensure that our local talent is being nurtured and being put to use toward improving their own neighborhoods. That is why I'm actively working on an initiative with the Central Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation and Jobs First to incubate a group of black-owned businesses. Of this initial group, we are going to identify the strongest proposals and provide them with free space on underutilized commercial corridors in Brownsville. This project will have the dual impact of creating economic opportunity for our black entrepreneurs while revitalizing local retail and improving the range of amenities in this historic neighborhood. Here's the thing though, Brooklyn. None of this can happen successfully if we don't have members in our community willing to step up and do this work alongside us. Because this isn't about me, this is all about you. And I want to make sure we hold true to that. So over the next year, I'm going to be pushing for some serious changes to our community boards. Community boards are part of our local government, just as much as we are. And if we're going to deliver on our comprehensive plan, if we're going to deliver our housing, healthcare, transportation, if we're going to build Brooklyn that reflects the people who live here, we need community boards that are truly representative and working on behalf of local residents. All right, who invited Camacho? I did. Just want to give it up to Camacho. Chair Camacho of Bushwick Community Board 4. So on top of our comprehensive plan, on top of our non-for-profit acquisition plan, on top of our solarization project, and a Brownsville small business effort, I want to announce one more change coming to Brooklyn. Since 1989, when the city charter was revised and the role of the Brooklyn Borough President, or the Borough Presidents in general, was reimagined, there has been very little clarity regarding how the responsibility for supporting community boards would be divided between Borough Hall and mayoral agencies. For the last few decades, this has resulted in very ad hoc series of customs and norms for assisting community boards that ultimately result in the boards failing to receive the support and resources they need to carry out their charter-mandated functions. This is a failure of governance, and I cannot accept that. And since I am an elected official that doubles as an agency head, I'm going to issue guidance that interprets what the language in the charter means on the ground, with the goal of ensuring that community boards know exactly what they need to reach, who they need to reach out to when they need help. All of our city agencies must step up so that our community boards can truly fulfill their roles as our most grassroots level of government. Because community boards have to be fully funded and fully resourced, just like any other city agency. And of course, they need to be just as diverse as our borough. They've got to reflect the communities they represent. And I'm not just talking about race and ethnicity, I'm talking about interests, education, or ability status. Do you drive a car or do you take public transportation? Do you own a home or are you a renter? Are you a single parent? Do you live in NYCHA? Nearly 1/4 of Brooklyn is 18 years or younger. But most applicants and appointees to community boards last year were ages 45 to 64. So we're also talking about age. Right now, our community board team is working hard to see at least 2 members between the ages of 16 and 18 years old on each of our 18 community boards. We need the people of Brooklyn to get involved, to apply, to join our community boards, which you can do up until February 14th. So right before you go to dinner with your loved one for Valentine's, apply for the community board. It's very romantic, I promise. Or apply for the person that you're dating or something. We want everyone. Because our borough cannot move into the future without all of us working together, and I promise you, I will do my part. I take pride in being the chief executive of Brooklyn. This role is more than just ceremonial. We've set forth to make a real impact with measurable outcomes. We're going to prove what we can do, the difference a borough president can make. We're going to be bold, creative, and revolutionary. We're going to be interdepartmental, interdisciplinary, and intergenerational. We're going to plan for tomorrow, and we're going to act now. We're going to take back this borough and show everyone what the people of Brooklyn can do. And we're going to do it all while spreading love, because that's the Brooklyn way. Thank you very much. Love you.